and therefore it's being recorded. All right. This morning for you guys, we have Sasha, who is somebody that I absolutely love working with. Normally our talks focus in around bringing in you some scientists, oh, the rover, this, oh, we did that here. However, how did we get there? How is it that we were able to work collaboratively together to make all these things happen? What tools do we use in order to improve performance? And Sasha is one of the answers to that question. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you all for having me be a part of this. This is very wonderful. I wanted to first be on screen and say hello, but I will be sharing my screen because I have a slide deck to go through. A lot of the work that I do is very visual, and I'd love for you to all see what I'm talking about rather than hear what I'm talking about. In addition, I'll also be kind of going through how I got to where I am during this talk as someone that really focused on art in my early career and in my schooling, and then took that and flipped it into science work. So I'm really excited to share that that path with you, and also some of the wonderful things that I've done, both in a little bit in prior careers before going into NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So let me just share. You let me know what this looks like. I'm afraid this might look. How does that look? I think you can see my notes though, right? Weird.
Yeah, your notes are showing up in that one.
How about now?
Now you're good.
Okay, we don't need notes. Notes are for the week. I like to have them sometimes as a comfort blanket, but you know what? Training wheels are off today. Let's do this. Okay, so as I said, my name, let's go, is Sasha Samoshina. Currently my title, I'm the manager of data visualization and infusion, which is a group inside of the wonderful Tech Solutions Directorate at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So I don't know if people have done this before, but I'll also give you a brief history lesson of what NASA JPL is, how it got formed, and how I fit into this whole world of it. So in a lot of my early youth, my thought was, how do you combine science and art, and how do you do that successfully? A lot of the time, the answer to that was the shruggy emoji. I don't know how to do this. Throughout schooling in my early life, it was always, I really love science classes, but I really love art classes. I didn't really have a way to combine those very nicely outside of video games. So this is a nice photo of me very formally dressed to play video games, which I feel like I should still have a velvet dress on while I work all day. So I really wanted to think of a way to combine art, music, technology, and science. A lot of that passion came through computer games, through creating my own early computer graphics and things of that nature. So that was something that really set into my mind early on. However, while applying to university, I actually, instead of applying to all kind of larger universities that have science, I applied only to art schools, kind of finding that passion that really drove me. Speaking of showing up to classes early, I had to take art class at 5 a.m. In my final year of school because I had to take it before all other classes started so that I could finish with all of my with all the classes and all the credits. So I was getting up at 4 in the morning to get to school by 5 to be able to paint and make sculptures for an hour. So needless to say, those were very sad-looking paintings because they were very tired, as I was as well. My mom says differently, but I would beg to differ. So actually, during school, I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is a wonderful art school here in the U.S. that is located in Chicago, Illinois. And during my time there, my sophomore year, I got to have a wonderful internship that turned into a full-time job after my internship was over. And during that time, in this Natural History Museum, I got to do so many things that combined art and science. I got to make a Romance of Ants website that allowed people to not only understand what ants are, it connected to the Romance of Ants exhibit and got people that were really excited about entomology or the study of insects to really connect and learn more. Some of my best work, I think. I got to take a lot of videos and photos of different things, including biological sites and anthropological collections. I got to translate Russian to a courier of a 41,000-year-old mammoth. My country of origin is Russia. I moved here when I was young. And so all of these skills combined got me to sort of flex a lot of that creative muscle, but also have it be within the constraint of science. And some of the really amazing work that I did with that group is actually immortalized in an exhibit called Restoring Earth, which is currently still a permanent hall at the Natural History Museum in Chicago, Illinois. And just briefly, I want to mention this is because this work really took scientists and put them in the field. So we were working with the Andes Amazon region of South America, and we were able to actually see where people were trying to either deforest the land through logging or other big business, find different species of animals, different cultures, make a case for the government and save that land for the people. And my part in that was not actually going to these places, but taking that data and visualizing it and making sure people understood what would either happen in the future or making videos and graphics about the people and the stories that were there. And by the end of that time, we had saved 28,000 acres of Amazonian land and started the third largest park in Peru called Cordillera Azul. And this job from the internship through working there afterwards really sort of immortalized to me how a very small thing that you're talented at can connect to a bigger thing in the world that actually helps. So that connection was really for me done with this idea of media and through this idea of technology and this idea of computers and data visualization. So let's fast forward. I had several other smaller jobs that taught a lot of different things for me, specifically, you know, honing in on my skills of web design and development and definitely computer graphics, etc. But about 6 years ago, I started my career at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. For those of you that don't know, this logo is called the meatball. That's just what it's called. I think it's because it looks like a meatball. I'm not sure where they got it exactly. It's just the other logo looks like a worm, so it's called the worm. But this is the logo that we use, and just in case you didn't know, JPL, or NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, is part of a huge agency of NASA. We're actually the only one that is funded by the government, so funded by NASA money, but part of Caltech, which is a university, which is where we started. And this is what it looks like. It's nestled in the mountains of Pasadena, California, and it's very lovely. We have a lot of nature come in to JPL, like deer, raccoons. You see wildlife everywhere you go sometimes. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. So of the 10 centers, we're really one that focuses on robotic missions to space, which I am sure you know from previous talks here. We were the first ones to actually create ballistic missiles for the government, and from that we created Explorer 1, which is the first NASA kind of mission. So JPL helped to build the spacecraft, and it's the American answer to Sputnik, which is actually the first craft to go into space. As I said, I am Russian, so I don't take sides on this argument of which spacecraft is cooler or better. All I know is that Explorer 1 did actually do science, and Sputnik did not. Now, you know, again, I'm not going to get into it. If there's a question about that, I will not pick sides. I'm very diplomatic that way. So, you know, actually, because of Explorer 1, that's how NASA became an agency. So JPL actually predates NASA, which is kind of exciting. This is a wonderful scene of our mission control or the spacecraft operations facility. On the right, you'll see what it looks like today. On the left, you'll see it in its nascency in the 60s, actually. It looks a lot different, and it's gone through a lot of different work, but this is how all of the robotic missions can talk to us on Earth. So no matter what mission it is and where it's flying, what country actually built the spacecraft, they all phone home through NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Mission Control. So we call it the center of the universe based on our former director who called it that because it's really where the whole universe talks to one place, and it's a wonderful place to see. Now, the way that all the robotic spacecraft actually talk to us on Earth is through these huge array of antennae that are in 3 places on the Earth. One is just north of us, actually, in Barstow, California. One set is in Madrid and one is in Canberra, Australia. So that's very exciting. And the way that they work is as the Earth rotates, they're kind of 120 degrees longitude away from each other. And as we turn, we never lose sight of any spacecraft. Even Voyager 1, which is now further than any object made by a human in the universe. So this is a very awesome technology, and we're able to kind of use it to speak to all these robotic missions. And the reason I'm getting into all of this is because the data that comes down through the Deep Space Network is really my bread and butter. So firstly, I'd like to talk about this little rover here. So some of you know about the Perseverance rover that just recently landed on February 18th. This is Curiosity. She is the rover that predates Perseverance, but her data is really what first perked up my love of sort of both immersive media, which I'll talk to you about, and how to kind of let people see things in a different way. So on February 2016, this was a planned kind of release that we were going to put out into the public. This is an equirectangular panorama. Let me unpack that for you. This is a panorama of both the terrain around Curiosity as well as herself. And if you kind of took this and spun it around in a circle, you would be able to be in the center and look down and be in the wheels of Curiosity. Now, at that time, there wasn't really a lightweight way to do this that would speak to the public. We were not really on the precipice of any kind of 360 things that were coming out. But larger agencies like Google, specifically YouTube and Facebook, were starting to create this way to share the media through a 360. And so because of NASA's amazing charter of saying that as soon as something happens, when it happens, we have to tell the public. We have to tell the public this amazing science and engineering news as soon as we can, because we are funded by the government and the government's funded by taxpayer money. And so that is something that we do. And so I was able to figure out how to put that melty image into this YouTube and Facebook video that came out when that API or that kind of release of software first came out. So you were able to really pan around and look at Curiosity and stand around where she was seeing. You could see Mount Sharp here. You can see this Namib Dune, which she was exploring at the time. So it was really a first that something like this could be put in the hands of any person in the public, and they could explore and do as they would like, you know, kind of not only exploring this data through this way of doing it and looking at it, but also we released the actual files to the public, and I'll give you that link in a second because we want people to experiment with this really cool stuff. So I became a little bit obsessed with immersive. After that, I started thinking, well, how can we create bigger stories? How can we create more exciting ways? And so Juno actually went into the closest orbit around Jupiter on July 4th, 2016. And to kind of couple that event, I was able to work with some amazing digital artists at JPL to create this. This is just a GIF of the whole video, where you can fly along with Juno and learn more about her, learn more about the spacecraft. You can also go inside of the spacecraft, which is awesome, and I'll talk about computer-aided design and these sorts of graphics later. But with this guided tour, we were able to take you inside and look at, if you look at the bottom when this pans back down, there are 3 little minifigures. And not many people knew what those were. They said, hey, I thought you only had robotic missions. These look to be travelers alongside Juno. And actually, there are 3 little minifigures that are made by Lego that accompany Juno on the journey. They are Galileo, who first saw Jupiter, and Jupiter and Juno, the Roman gods that the mission is named after. So we were able to have that little Easter egg revealed in a really nice way where you could pan around and explore. So as I promised, we have a Museum Alliance page, and I will put this at the end of my talk as well. If you visit this page, you'll be able to download things for planetariums, or also download all of the 360s made from different centers that you can take in and kind of do whatever you'd like with. I always love to see the sort of creativity that comes out of some of the inventions that people use this for. I mean, you can do everything from a video game to just, you know, trying to recreate the same thing for your own page. It's pretty exciting, and I can't wait to see if any of you take on the challenge. So after really being excited about this very lightweight, very portable public tool, I moved into the next step of my journey at JPL that really focused on taking that to the next level. So as I said, I really like video games. This brought me a little bit closer to that because I started working with augmented reality, virtual reality, and now that's called cross reality. So XR is the term now. It changes all the time, but it's been that for a while. So shortly, that's called AR and VR. These glasses that you're seeing here are called the HoloLens, and they are used to project holograms on top of the real world. And you can use some gestures to be able to basically still see the world around you, but also project things on top of it to help with really, we wanted to take it and kind of flip it on its head and make it very useful inside of the workflow for our scientists and engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Now, the first project I'll be looking at that I helped to participate on the back end of the project is this project called Onsite, which is a tool that lets you actually walk on Mars. So this is an anaglyph, and this is a way that scientists used to get 3D perspective on Mars. For those of you that remember this is the blue and cyan glasses that you put on to get depth. I mean, it's still a cool perspective to get, but really when you're a geologist on Mars, you're like, okay, well, how do I really know how big this rock is? Or how do I know that this rock is this far away from this rock? It's really hard to get that depth. In 2013, the Ops Lab, where I worked at this time, started thinking about how do you, not in 2013, but when I was starting to participate in this project, I should say, we started thinking about, well, how do we solve this problem for geologists? So we did some really early tests using the Oculus, which was the first virtual reality device we really thought about. And we took those images that I showed you in 360 and just plopped this device on people's heads so they could actually get some idea of distance between rocks. And we proved that this is a really good direction to go to help people in their workflow. We would never have gone that way if they said, you know what, this isn't for us. But so many people said, this is great, this is helping us. This is helping us look at geology like we do on Earth. So we'd love to be transported to Mars to do the same work. So that's what made us make the Onsite tool. So Onsite is quite literally a tool for scientists to walk on Mars and work on Mars from their own offices. So this is a tool that I can collaborate with all of you. If you had a HoloLens right now and we had Onsite running, we could all be having this lecture on Mars, which would be kind of exciting, and you probably wouldn't listen to me at all because you'd be running around and looking at amazing new things. Just to give you a little bit of a taste of what that terrain looks like, and to give you a little of a background of, well, how do you get Mars into this device and how do you walk around on it? Oops, there we go. Well, the way that this works is, again, from our friend Curiosity that I showed you a picture of before. From photos that she takes, we actually take those photos, combine them with orbital data of all the spacecraft that are just going around Mars and not landing there. And we're combining that into a mesh that allows you to auto-update everywhere Curiosity is. So what you're looking at right here is not a computer game. This is not a rendering from something fake. This is, in fact, real Mars taken from actual data. And it's pretty breathtaking. You can see those tracks there. Those are Curiosity's tracks from actual photos that were taken. And there are kind of two different meshes that you can make. You can make this very integrated mesh, or you can make a mesh you can actually do science off of. But we'll be focusing, for the sake of this, without going too deep, we're focusing on this wonderful integrated mesh that can happen automatically from this kind of pull down of both photos and orbital data. And just to give you a feel of, I'm not going to talk about that, just to give you a feel of what the scientists look like in augmented reality, because we have a web component too, this is what they look like. So these are actual sessions called Meet on Mars that we had our different scientists wearing the HoloLens, looking at different sites of Mars and really discovering things based on the place that Curiosity was currently just looking at. So it's a really wonderful way to sort of take the idea of transporting people to where they cannot be to do their jobs a little bit more efficiently. And it was really thrilling to get feedback from the scientists to say, wow, this is a great technology. This is a tool that we really like. And we were also thrilled to leverage the HoloLens, which we wouldn't have been able to really do this in such a way without that tool. Now, we got to make a few public outreach pieces after this. This was in the Kennedy Space Center, which was an actual 3D experience, first time done with the HoloLens, where Buzz Aldrin got to take you on a look at Mars, and you got to see what Mars habitability might look like, etc. We had several visitors in 3 months, but still we wanted to reach the public in a better way. So a group of us created Access Mars, which takes that same data that I was talking about, the photos and the orbital data, and produces the mesh, but it's there for you to go to today and explore. So if you go to accessmars.com, you'll be able to be exploring the Martian surface, to be understanding why some things look like they are. If you have virtual reality devices, you can actually plug into the browser on your VR device and be able to explore Mars just like our scientists do. Or you can just do it on the web. This is a wonderful experience. We have Katie Stack-Morgan, who's a wonderful Mars scientist and geologist that works at JPL, and she lets you know, why does this picture look like this? Why did we explore this terrain? What's the special thing about this site on Mars? So I encourage you to, in your free time, or maybe go home and show your parents how you've been on Mars today, or share it with your family. And as you know, I mentioned this, we have a new and improved rover on Mars. She's got more data that we can pull down. She's got all color cameras. Her name is Perseverance, and here she is with helicopter Ingenuity that just recently did its first powered flight on Mars. So what I showed you before was just the first steps, and more concrete, and I should say more high resolution data in this rover that will help us to continue to see exactly what, if there's life on Mars, and if there is, what it looks like. And we're really thrilled to continue sort of experimenting with the same data sets in this new and improved way with our newest rover that's arrived on Mars as of February this year. Just a few days after my birthday. It was a great birthday present. So that's kind of the science part of things. And as I promised, you know, JPL focuses on engineering things as well. So we have something which is the same similar product, but focuses on how engineers think. And it's called Protospace. And I'm going to just play this through and talk to it. So Protospace is a 3D CAD visualization software. CAD means computer-aided design, and that's a really complex model design that engineers use that looks like this. Now, what you're seeing here is through the HoloLens perspective. So this is a tool that allows engineers to see things in full scale. So while they're building their model in 2D, as you see there, they're able to actually put on a HoloLens device and look at their model in full scale with a group of people. So those people can be in the same room as you or in different countries. So it's a way to really cross-collaborate and look at one thing in very different places. We also have a web component where people can edit models. But really the point here is that I want to tell you is just being able to see something that you've only seen in two-dimensional space kind of come out of the screen at you and be in full scale. That really gives our wonderful engineers a way to also interact. Like here you see them moving the model, you see them rotating the model, and you can create cross-sections with the model. That's just a few tools of how you can work with your team around you to really grasp something that's more of at a concept stage and really kind of build the problem before it happens. We also get the wonderful ability to work with astronauts with this project, and I'll get into that, where we're able to go through procedural work and sort of do step-by-step guidance for them to be able to do things not only in space, but also do things in training for going to the International Space Station. So I'm excited to sort of dig in really briefly about some of the aspects of this work. So this is a perfect picture of something Protospace does. We have someone on the lower left looking at something in a clean room where they have to wear all of the protective gear. They're building the spacecraft. And in the office, you see someone both controlling the model from the web as well as looking at the model in another room. So really this shows different people collaborating on the same thing and being able to talk to each other and use tools at the same time. So we're bringing 3D designs into the world and solving problems before they're real. Hopefully solving problems before they're real. At least we're visualizing problems before they're real. And as promised, we also work with astronauts. So here you see Scott Kelly, and if you're not familiar with him, he spent a year in space. And here we had an experiment in 2016 where Scott used Protospace in its very early stages to be able to go through a procedure guided by the program with someone in mission control guiding him as well. So we're continuing this work, and we're trying to empower crew with assistance when and where they need it, going through testing and sort of trying to help astronauts both train and finish their work without having to look at a piece of paper or fumble with things, really having a heads-up display that will guide them. As we always do, I think a public outreach version of something that you can use to sort of understand how these things work is available again. So there's a free tool for both Google and Android devices for tablets or phones called Spacecraft AR that allows you to visualize models in full scale. Now be careful, some of these models are really big, so when you look at them on your phone in your living room, they might go out of the walls, but that gives you an idea of how big they are. The other really cool thing about this application in particular is that you can start a session with a friend or with a family member in your house, so you can kind of understand what it's like to interact in augmented reality with these wonderful models. So it just gives you a taste of something that an engineer would think about when they're using one of our tools, such as Protospace, to conceptualize and build their spacecraft. So the last thing I want to dig into a little bit is a new kind of way that we took something and ported it to today's problem set. So, you know, what we really want to do is we look at as JPLers and as people that make software, we look at the full world, not only ourselves, and try to understand what we can do to help. So actually JPL sprung to the help of the world trying to build ventilators that help with the shortage that was happening at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis and continues to happen in some parts of the world. So we were tasked with helping to provide, as I said, instructions that were not only just PDF or paper-based or, you know, web-based writing, but some way to visually represent to not only people assembling ventilators, but also to people using the ventilators. So in short, these devices, the plans were given out to free licensees to be able to build emergency ventilators. This was passed by the FDA on March 24th. This was a 3.5-week project that was very fast on everyone's part, and we were able to help contribute the plans to help assemble the ventilators for both national and international partners, as well as for respiratory therapists, doctors, and nurses to use them. So just to give you an idea of what the assembly procedure looks like, we basically took the idea that I was saying with the engineering tool and made it all web-based. So you're able to really see how each part of the ventilator comes together. You're able to click around, and on the left there you see how each part works, what it is, you know, to see the specs on it if you need to replace it, and really kind of begin to see the whole picture of how the ventilator takes form. And this is great especially because if you think of an assembly line of how they make cars or something like that, this is what we were planning for a mass sort of, any factory that got the free license was able to make these. And so we wanted to help communicate outside of just language barriers. We wanted to be able to visually show people how these ventilators were made. And in the same way, we did the same for respiratory therapists, nurses, and doctors that were working in the hospitals. We created, after getting interviews with them, we learned, you know, they do not have time. They just do not have time to go on the computer. They might not have Wi-Fi. So we created a mobile-based instruction that they could quickly see, hey, this light is going off. What does that mean? Okay, I have to adjust this like this. Wait, I'm not sure what that means. I'm going to watch this video. That they had time for. So we made this very easy to basically load and understand instructional that can fit on your phone, in your pocket, or in the break room whenever you have time. So as I said in the beginning, I started this talk with saying, well, how do we combine art and science? How do I do that for myself? I've given you a bit of my journey here. For me, I think taking what has been in the past and connecting it to what's happening now, sort of with the idea of technology and the idea of creativity is where I found my way to fit into this world. And it's really a thrill to have done the work that I have. It's impossible without the wonderful teams that I work with and with the wonderful leads and, managers that have helped to put this all together. But I do want to stress also that for me, we make these public outreach tools and we make these ways for you to learn because you are the next generation of explorers. And for me, it's thrilling to see what you're doing and how we can help you and what other things you'd like to see out in the world that could sort of inspire you to pursue some of these careers and some of these undiscovered things that we're doing. As promised, here are some links for you. So the bit.ly planetarium link to download this 360 is right there. Please visit the YouTube NASA channel. There are not only very cool Perseverance videos, but all of the 360s are on there if you're curious. You can always find me online at Cloud Sasha. I'm happy to answer questions. My website has my personal email, which you're welcome to write me and ask questions, and I'm happy to give any of the resources that I shared here. And please visit jpl.nasa.gov for any more information on what's happening in the latest space news, but also, some more tech news and things like that that's coming around the bend. And with that, I want to thank you, and I think I'm ready to field some questions.
Is she amazing or what? Did I lie? So there's a reason why I enjoy working with Sasha so much, and you guys were so busy listening to her, I have no questions as of yet, which is the first time that's ever happened. So feel free to take out a moment, type in the questions, and we will start to bombard Sasha with questions.
This is where the real work begins. I have to be
That's right.
ready.
All right. If you could redo your career, would you do anything differently?
That's a great question. I don't think my career is quite, it's a hard one. I don't think my career is quite over, so I wonder if I could still have room to do things that I wanted to do. I think specifically in university, I took a lot of time. I wish I would have taken more time to really delve into research. I did do a lot of research work. And I think the Field Museum of Natural History really kind of fed that in me. But I think on a personal path, I think selfishly from the creative art side, I wish that I would have done more research about some of this up and coming sort of history of the up and coming media that I've done now. So I could kind of be 2 steps ahead of even the current future work that it seems that I'm doing, because I feel like there's so much more to learn, and kind of understanding those patterns, you can be a little bit ahead of the curve. And I don't know if this is a good way to say, I'm saying this to a bunch of students, but I did spend a lot of time doing homework, which I think is really important. But at one point, I think I should have spent more time experiencing things too. And I think in your curriculums, I'm sure you have more experiential work that you do. I just feel like I spend a lot of time alone reading and doing homework, which is good. This is how you get here. You have to work really hard. It doesn't just happen. But maybe I would have just maybe taken some people up on more things to do outside of just school that are school related, of course.
Stay in school.
Stay in school. Of course.
All right. Do you believe that I was just kidding. Yes. Do you believe that XR has the potential to become a mainstream technology like smartphones, computers, etc.? If so, what will its use be in everyday life?
Well, this is a really good question. I think that there are the ways in which we're currently, or I would say the industry is currently trying to make XR more accessible, but it's not utilitarian enough. I think it's hard to say that within the next 5 years we're going to have, a HoloLens in every classroom. I think that because that's behind the doors of an industry, I think it's hard to say. But in terms of like Access Mars, for instance, that's a web XR experiment. So it works on the web, and it also works across a slew of different devices that if you have them, it could work, but also it works on tablet or a phone. So I think that's the first step to sort of making this usable. I don't think that headsets will be as big as smartphones have become really quickly, but I think we haven't seen the devices yet that will already talk to our phones in a way that'll make it more accessible for everybody.
So you may not know the answer to this one, but I got your back otherwise, Sasha. Did the rover go up in a rocket, or was it just the rover itself?
Oh, this is a great question too, because we don't build the rockets anymore, even though we're the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We actually build the payloads, which are the things that go in the rocket. So it did go up on a launch system. And in fact, I believe you can look at that launch system in Spacecraft AR and look at how it deploys things. And so, you can also look at the entry, descent, and landing of Perseverance, which is also the rover actually going on its own for a while and then landing on Mars, which I would love to take you through the different stages. I don't know how much time we have. I don't think I'll go through entry, descent, and landing here, but I can post a couple of resources that'll show you some awesome visuals of how, from the rocket launch to the rover going on its own to the rover landing. It's a poetic process that we at JPL are very proud to have figured out. Present company not included, but present company is very proud.
So I'm going to answer this first part for Sasha. What do you want to do in the future? She wants to stay at JPL forever. So we'll just start there. And then where do you see XR going in the future?
Something that I'm personally passionate about is to help, again, democratize the new technology to be able to be more helpful. So I think haptics are really important as a future thought. I had a very sort of humbling experience with showing that on-site demo of the Mars walk to a woman that came to visit JPL. And she said, "I'm deaf, I can't hear." She's like, "Are there any audio cues here?" And I was like, no. And she was like, "What would I experience if I couldn't see?" And I was like, well, you'd experience a headset on your head and that's it. And so I think something really to look forward to in this space of like spatial computing and new devices coming out, I think thinking about haptics of how to help people sort of situate themselves in the world and be able to maybe feel and see things in a different way is a really kind of exciting place for me in terms of beginning to research and explore what's going on out there.
All right. You touched on this one a little bit, but maybe you can go a little bit more in depth. But when you were younger, how did you imagine using your art skills, and did you have an interest in science at the time?
Yes. I was brought up very much loving, I could draw before I could talk. So, just pencil to paper and art was a very huge part of my upbringing, as was music. I was classically trained in piano and then played in a rock band when I was 16. So all of these were my love languages of the arts. But in terms of my love for science, I was always very interested in astronomy. I have a brother that is 6 years older and would always teach me like chapters above the books that I was reading in school about the cool science I was going to learn like in 6 years and how excited he was about it. So I was trying to find a way that both of those could interact. And I really think computer science is where I found that even though I didn't major in computer science, I self-taught myself a lot of things that were in the virtual world. And I think that's where kind of science and art came together for me.
Okay. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we've got a lot more questions to go through, so I'm going to try and speed these along. What was your hardest job or mission?
Hardest job or mission? Wow, I would say actually the ventilator work was it was exciting. It was challenging because it had to happen very quickly and we didn't know what we were exactly going to end up with. And each day was an adventure of both trying to be quick and communicate and get the data that we needed to create what we wanted. So in a way, it was one of the hardest because we went from beginning to end in 3.5 weeks and finished 4 things, which never happens. Mike, you can attest to me that that's fast. And that's from researching to implementing to making it live and giving it to people. So I would say for sure, because of just the need of, we were really hoping to help people with this product and help people to understand how to make and use it. It felt like the pressure was on there, and it wasn't spacecraft. It was human beings, and I think that was probably the hardest.
So Sasha, one of the students would like to know how much you enjoy your job.
I enjoy my job very much. I really enjoy the people. I miss being at work, in these times we don't get to do that. That's half of the fun is you can walk by someone and say, hey, what are you working on? They're like, actually, and then you get into this conversation about like, suddenly you're talking about orbital mechanics and you're like, wait, this is above me. And they're like, well, I'll explain it to you. It's very cool. Everyone's so happy to sort of share the information and share their brains and share what they're doing. So it really feeds that part of me.
And another student has asked, do you think that VR will be vital for all future scientific exploration in space or other areas in the future?
Excellent question. Once again, I do think it's a great training tool, and we are using it to do a lot of things that we were not able to do before, especially on the human side. And I'm speaking for NASA as an agency, not as NASA as the agency, but for centers that do specifically work with human spaceflight. I think it'll be a huge tool for training and simulating environments that we cannot do as well when we're not fully immersed in something. I did a wonderful thing at Johnson Space Center where they emulated what it's like to be on the moon. And I immediately drove the moon rover off the edge of something and accidentally threw my partner across the moon. So I don't think I'm a great astronaut. They were like, oh, I was like, have I failed? They're like, you failed miserably, but you've tested the software. And that's basically the funniest part. But yes, it's already being used. And I do think that it's something that doesn't exist in such a lightweight way that we can kind of begin to take it into the process.
So this next question is from somebody who's trying to justify their game playing time. So just keep that in mind as I ask this. What video games did you like to play as a kid, and do they have an impact on your job now? So they're going to go home and explain to their parents why they need to play more. Just,
Oh, I don't know if any of you would know the games that I played as a kid, but I can tell you one that I still play that I think is relevant, and I wouldn't be mad if you played it more. If you want to work in space, Kerbal Space Program. It's a very cool game. Everyone's shaking their heads. I'm a big fan of it, just because it's crazy how accurate it is, and people at work are like, oh man, I didn't get to serve people that work on actual missions. So it's very hard to do, and I think that game really speaks to that. So I love that game currently, and will always, I think.
So I'm skipping a question here, not because it isn't important, because I have one that I really want you to speak to.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind. So this is a multi-part question. What path did your career take? What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome these? And have you ever faced challenges as a result of being a female?
3-part question. Here we go. So what path did my career take? Obviously, I've zigged and zagged a lot because I started out in art, then found science through the internship, and I skipped the stages where I went and worked in web design and development in New York, then moved to LA on a whim and worked in Hollywood production for a little bit, and then found the job at NASA that I had as my first job at JPL, and it was something that was on my radar, but something that I didn't really think I was qualified for. But then I looked at the ad and it was like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then I just applied. I blindly applied through the internet to my first job at JPL. And if that's not a lesson to, apply and just go for it, I don't know what is. But I will tell you also that I've also applied to probably 200 other jobs that I never heard back from. So I want people to know that if you don't apply yourself to it, it might not no one's going to see it if you don't go for it. So I say go for it, because that's how I am here right now. And it truly is a dream job in many ways. What challenges? So I think a lot of challenges for me, and I think I'll tie this in with the female question, is a lot of times I've been questioned about my ability to be technical. I think not only because of my background and not having, a degree in sciences, and specifically in technology of some sort, but having been in that world and working for a very long time with it, I think that came up as a question a lot. And I do think sometimes it was based on the fact that I was kind of pigeonholed into roles that were more organizational, or, hey, Sasha, like, you can do this because, this is more what you're into. And it's like, no, I can be the lead of a project and push it through, and I can do this. So a lot of kind of making sure you tell yourself that what you're doing is right. And it's something that people face all the time. And I think it's beyond just being gender-based. I think a lot of people go through it. But I think for me specifically, the always having to show people that I'm able to do things because I'm technical in the early stages of my career was very, very difficult. And it was hard for me to sort of sometimes see past it. But I pushed through, and I think everyone should push through. And now, as a person that manages and helps people with careers as well, I make sure that that path is open to them. So I make that a promise to myself and to the people that I help out with their careers.
So in some ways, to follow up, what advice do you have for students wanting to enter the space industry?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say sometimes. So I do think the process to get a job here, it is very long. It took me 6 months from beginning to end to apply and get an exception letter. So I think you have to sort of think about what it is that you'd like to do within the industry, because there are career paths that do have a very kind of stringent path. So if you want to be, let's say, a systems engineer on a certain part of, or a mission that you like in the future or something, I do think there's a path for that is not always cut and paste, but there are certain classes that you need to take and certain things that, you need to know to be able to get to that way. I think another thing that I don't think many people know is that at JPL, for instance, we have a whole group called the Studio that focuses on art. So they make ways to create installations to talk about how things work at JPL. They create amazing things for the public to learn more things, and they give them to everyone for free, which we always do, but it's wonderful. It's a perk. And they think creatively about some of these problems, both in a design thinking way and in sort of in an artful way. And I think that we forget that art and science are together, and we actually literally have that at JPL. And for software, I think if you're interested in immersive and if you're interested in those sort of paths, learning spatial computing is important if you want to do the technical side, but also on a systems engineering, just understanding how software processes work. We have room for people that are named producers or, project managers, people that oversee how projects work and help to do the human side of the robotics, which we forget the human side sometimes, don't we? So there are several paths you can take. If you're interested in my, in digging into what I did exactly, I'm happy to email with you and give you some more information, or put you in contact with other folks that can give you more concrete ways that their paths worked within other sectors at JPL.
And then we're going to have two last questions because we're really out of time. What degrees did you study? What degrees do you have?
So I have a bachelor's. I should say only. I'm so used to saying that because at JPL you'll run into people with PhDs all the time.
Yeah, I only have a master's, so
I mean, come on. So I have a bachelor's in film, video, and new media. So I studied both film, video, and then new media was basically the technological side of doing a lot of animation, data viz, and kind of conceptual exploration of what computer technology can do.
And last, what is the favorite part of your job? Working with me. We're all done now. We're out. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say working with the people. I think being able to make projects come together, and I know Mike and I are in meetings all the time that might seem, sometimes we have to figure out some boring problems, but we make it fun, don't we? I think we do. I think we do. So, as I said, we build robotic missions to space. We need to not forget the human side, and I think the robotic side is thrilling, and we've created that, but the human interaction side is really what the cherry on top is for me at the end of each day.
Well, I want to thank Sasha for giving us her time today, and for all of you for taking out the time to attend the class. I want to be respectful of your teachers and make sure that you're able to get to your next class on time. So you all have a wonderful day. Study hard. And I will pass this recording along, Jackie, so that you guys can have this for future.
And Sasha and Mike, thank you so much. It's been amazing. And I just wanted to say, I downloaded on my phone early on Spacecraft AR. I thought that was awesome. And I would have my kids in my classroom do talks then using their iPad so that they could take everyone on a journey. So I highly recommend any of those things, but how incredible. And thank you for your time, and thank you for inspiring us. And I wish I could, but one day I hope to fly you both out here and put you on the road like we have done in years gone past. But thanks so much. And I know any schools that have any more questions, just email them to me, and you'll find the video link. I'll send that out to you all. But thanks so much. And Sasha, how cool. From ants to space. Amazing. Amazing. Okay?
All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.